I've been standing in the smoke where the skyline disappeared. Built a throne from every doubt, every failure, every fear. Everybody talks about the fire till they standing in the flame. Then they're looking for a hero, funny how they know your name. Pressure only taught me how to sharpen every scar. Every closed door only turned another lock into a start. I don't chase the spotlight, I become the reason that it shines. Turning every second that they doubted into headlines over time. Hear it! The silence is breaking. Feel it. The ground is awakening. Hear it. The silence is breaking. Feel it. The ground is awakening. If the world keeps waiting, I'll become the spark. If the night gets darker, I'll become the mark. Raise your voice, raise your eyes. Nothing changes till somebody decides. When the silence shatters, everything ignites. I've been carrying mountains underneath a steady smile. Every mile another lesson, every wound another trial. People only see the summit, never see the climb. Never count the nights you almost left your dream behind. So I learned to build a kingdom out of every broken brick. Every setback gave me leverage, every loss became a gift. Higher, higher, higher. Hear the thunder getting closer. One heartbeat, one moment, everything changes now. One moment, everything changes now. One moment, everything changes now. Now I'm running through the rubble with a pulse that'll never quit. Every little limitation getting never done, I need the grit. Every single second I was down into evidence. Now they're looking at the climb like they're watching an inheritance. Never gonna slow, never gonna fold. They're apprentice when the pressure in. Devastator, turn another stepping stone and then I measure every risk. Building every vision with precision while I'm living on the edge of it. My mother making never land. I've never followed the impossible to ever get ahead of it. I'm breaking every ceiling, rearranging every feeling. Got the horror rise up in it while the light is starts revealing that the fear was just a shadow, that the shadow never mattered. That the only thing between us and the mother was the pattern. No one all struggle is rising, every drum is synchronizing, every heartbeat multiplying, every echo amplifying, every chapter finally writing everything they thought impossible until it wasn't. When the silence breaks, the whole world moves, When one voice rises, a thousand more choose. So
Absolutely. So, Austin Rogers, obviously, running for Congress. Born and raised here in the Panhandle. So, grew up in Bay County. Went to Lynn Haven Elementary, Mowat Middle School, and then Mosley High School. So, graduated from Mosley. Went on to play college soccer, and then eventually went and did a dual degree in law and theology at Duke. After graduating from Duke Law, went and practiced law for several years. And then my wife matched for her residency up in D.C., and when she did, that's when I joined the fight. Started working as a chief counsel in Congress. Worked for Senator Lindsey Graham as his chief civil counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And then after that, worked for Chuck Grassley, and then most recently for Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. So
nice, awesome. Where'd you go to high school here?
Mosley.
You went to Mosley?
Mosley, yeah. I'm a Dolphin. No offense to my Rams and my Tornadoes out there. Yeah.
What year did you graduate?
2009.
Oh, we graduated same year. Okay.
Wait. Did you go to Mosley?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, I don't remember. No. Yeah, I knew most. I was not to come across as a braggart, but I was the homecoming king, so I knew most people at the school. Just I was friends with the band geeks and with the jocks and the sports kids and a little bit of everyone. And so I didn't remember you, and so I was like, assuming you did not.
Did you go to church anywhere around here?
Yeah, so I grew up going to Lynn Haven United Methodist.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to start off with the rumor mill.
Sure.
Just because before I even get into the questions, there was some stuff and the highlight, being somebody who's worked in, so I've worked for several defense contractors and then, of course, even private military contractors.
Yeah.
So I've had to go through a lot of different security trainings and just learning about OPSEC awareness and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that, it seems like you've been hammered on, at least when I talk to people, I'm having on Austin Rogers. The first thing that has come up is, well, so I'm gonna go through everything.
Sure.
And then you could be like, let's separate the bullshit from what's actually real.
Sure.
So
Most of it, well, it depends. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you fire off, and I'm happy to address them.
okay, we'll start off with you've pretty much been in college the majority of your adult life, because how many degrees do you have?
I have 4 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
But I should say, like most people, well, that's a dual degree, right? So that's 2 degrees in 4 years, and then 2 graduate degrees.
okay. So that kind of came up about like, well, he hasn't really worked anywhere and he hasn't done anything in his experience. And when I ran for county commission, I've had some memory issues recently, so I don't really remember everything. But apparently when I was running, that was like the big deal, was like, everybody's like, oh, he's too young. He's got no experience. He's got, and so, and I'll let you defend yourself on all of these.
Sure.
So the next thing is that your wife is from Lebanon. Is that true?
Okay. Do you want me to address the first point or the second point?
Well, we can go individually.
All right, let's
if
go
you want.
individually. Let's tackle them one at
Okay,
a time. I think it would help organize our thoughts.
Let's go with the workforce.
Sure. So, item number 1. Jacob Ogles, top political reporter in the state of Florida, was writing about our race, and he's a Democrat. Has no reason to write about me honestly, and has every incentive to be mean and nasty and misconstrue things. But he wrote about our race and said, this guy's the youngest guy in the race, but he has the most relevant experience in Washington. So, yeah, I'm the youngest guy in the race. You'll notice, some of my competitors are in their 60s. I'm in my 30s. A couple points there. First, I am older than most of the folks who wrote our Constitution. And this notion that you have to be 70 years old to run for Congress is silly. I'm about J.D. Vance's age when he became a senator. And I think we, would all agree J.D. Vance is doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And so, I would dispel that myth from the outset.
Yep.
I have reached
a little bit closer.
I've reached some pretty high, high altitudes. So as someone who's from just a redneck boy from Bay County, was able to go to Duke Law, was able to be on law review. First of all, acceptance rate at Duke Law, very low. Getting on Duke Law Review, very low. This is at a time when they're implementing affirmative action on the law review. The law review actually got sued for that. And so was still able to make it on that. And then you look at federal clerkships. I got a federal clerkship for the chief judge, and here in Florida, Chief Judge Mary Day. That acceptance rate is about 3%. So clerked for him for a couple of years, worked in private practice at a top 10 law firm, White and Case, and then worked as a chief counsel in Congress. So worked for Senator Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, and most recently for Senator Rick Scott. So all that's to say is,
the work experience is definitely there.
The work experience is there. I've represented some of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
I've, attained top secret security clearance. I've done a lot for someone my age, and I'm very proud of what I've done. And I think I'm not only the most qualified and have the most relevant experience to be effective on day one, but I'm actually the only person in the race to be effective on day one, and I just happen to be the youngest. I think we need fresh, young blood there. So if anything,
No, I agree
I
with
think
you.
that is a fact that, inures to my benefit. But if nothing else, I would certainly dispel the myth that I don't have the relevant experience. We're not running. this isn't Schoolhouse Rock, where a bill goes from the House to the
Yeah.
Senate and is signed by the president. It is a dizzying mess and a complicated process. And I had the blessing of mastering that mess and really the only person who offers results on day one, who has the relevant experience to be effective on day one. So that's addressing item number one.
Yeah.
Number two, my wife is of Lebanese descent, and we are super proud of that.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know why everyone's so fixated on my wife. She's beautiful, but everyone seems to be obsessed with her. She's not the one running for Congress. I am. But let me address that point. My wife was born in the United States. Her father immigrated to the United States when he was in his teens. He immigrated here because of the Lebanese Civil War. So you had Shia Muslims taking over.
Your father-in-law lives here in the States?
Yes. He lives here in the States. He's a United States citizen. He's the most patriotic, conservative, Christian human being I've ever met in my life. And there are myths going around, cooked up by one of my colleagues in particular, because he's on a kamikaze mission. But there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's cooked up by one of my competitors. But he came to the United States because his country was in a civil war. He came here lawfully. He is the typical American dream story. Came to the United States with his shirt on his back. He delivered pizzas, worked his way through college, got an engineering degree, and then built businesses from the ground up. And has had an incredibly successful career. He owns landscaping companies, engineering companies, you name it. He has owned one of those companies, and he's been very successful in business. He's built a beautiful life for himself and his family, and I'm very proud to be supported by him. Both financially and emotionally, and every which way. He's an amazing Christian man. He's always taught my wife to be proud of America, to be patriotic, and so yes, she's of Lebanese heritage, and we're very proud of that.
Well, I like how you said it. It was like, I'm running for office, not my wife. And the way in which these questions were presented to me, where it was like, oh, you're having an Austin, bring this up.
Yeah.
Was almost kind of like, it was, well, first of all, the rumor also is that your dad or your father-in-law didn't live here. He lives in Lebanon now. And
he hasn't lived in Lebanon for...
What was it? It was like $1.4 or $1.2 million in your account.
Correct, yeah.
And it was like, being 34 years old or 35 years old.
Almost 36, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing there is he has been a United States citizen for north of 50 years.
Yeah.
And he still is close friends with the judge who did his naturalization ceremony. He lives in the United States. He lives in the Tampa Bay area, has businesses in Tampa and Chicago, and he's been incredibly successful and as American as they come. Yeah. But he's of Lebanese descent. Yeah. And we're proud of that.
Yeah. So that pretty much nails that out. Now, there was one more. Sure. Was about where you live. It was, you live in Lynn Haven. You don't own property here. Both of you guys have lived in Washington, D.C., which my argument against that is that, well, you've been working in Washington, and your wife's practice is there too, I think. So, I mean, obviously, you're from here. You want to represent the 2nd Congressional District.
Correct. Yeah.
So, you're going to come back. But I kind of feel like we need somebody that knows Washington. It seems like how long have you been living up there?
Well, I live here.
Well,
right?
yeah, but before.
I lived there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Well,
so you know Washington a little bit better than most candidates.
I know Washington better than any candidate. Yeah. And that's an important plus in my direction.
Which I think that's, and there's no shame in saying to another candidate where it's like, and I think you can agree with this because you grew up here, and I've lived other places too, where if you don't know how the culture is somewhere and then how the social setting is, and then you move there and you're like, hey, I'm new to Washington, I'm newly elected, and I get there and you don't understand how it works, I think that's how most of our politicians get screwed up.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of them get, jacked up because they
Yeah.
they weren't working under somebody for years, getting years of experience under
Yeah.
their belt, knowing the politics of Washington, and then they get there and then they fall into all the traps
Right.
that we see.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
Completely agree with that. Yeah. So I think, I said I had the schoolhouse rock analogy. Not only is there an incredibly steep learning curve for learning Washington, learning, committee process, first floor process, learning about, first degree amendments, second degree amendments, germaneness requirements. I mean, it's a dizzying mess. And
well,
you
I got some questions here, and I can't wait to get into them because I
Yeah.
really want to hear what you have to say with all
Sure.
that, all those
Yeah.
years, under your
Yeah.
belt.
But all that's to say, you could be Albert Einstein. It's going to take you 3-4 years to figure out what's going on, who the other members are, what the relevant political relationships are, how the process actually works, etc. I've spent several years mastering that mess, and I know it firsthand. I've seen firsthand how broken Washington is. So what I offer that no one else in this race offers is first day one results. I don't need training wheels. I'm able to hit the ground running. And you have some folks in this race who are in their 60s. It's going to take them 4 years just to figure out what's going on, where the bathrooms are.
Yeah.
I know where the bathrooms are. I know who the members are. I'm friends with their staff.
Yeah.
I've worked with the members, and I've worked on the bills. I've put pen to paper on bills that have become law, conducted hundreds of hearings, investigations, you name it. I've been there, done that. So
Yeah, and I think it is a safe thing to say that I think that everybody who's running, well, maybe not everybody, but you
Yeah.
ready to get into
yeah,
the...
I mean, let me make a quick comment while you're flipping open. Yeah, I mean, this nation faces issues, and I know every politician ever thinks,
Yeah.
they have the most important. I mean, we really do. If you think about it, everyone talks about men playing in women's sports. I think you and I are common sense people.
yeah, that's one of the...
We think it's silly. But my issue with that is more the culture of decline and decadence that shows in the United States. AI developing at a rapid pace. Charlie Kirk, a good man, shot and killed on a college campus just for speaking his mind. We face bigger issues as a nation than we ever have before, and we can't afford to send someone to Congress who is just going along and figuring it out, and who's nothing more than a backslapper. And so, I think my experience in Washington is something that brings immeasurable value to this district. And it just happens that, I know the swamp. I've seen firsthand how broken it is, but I'm not a swamp critter. I love to hunt and fish. I'm from here, born and raised, and love this area. This is where my 6, soon to be 7 nieces and nephews are, where my parents are, where my brothers are, my whole family is. And so I love this area. I know it well. I represent its values, but I also am the only person in the race with the relevant experience. So
Awesome. So these questions were emailed to me. The same questions that I'm giving all the candidates. I'm even having that Nick Zastro.
it's a Tesla. Yeah.
All right. So first 100 days.
Yeah.
What is the single most important issue you would focus on in your first 100 days, and what specific bill or piece of legislation would you introduce and support first?
Day one, I want to focus on China. China is our number one adversary. If the federal government is good for anything, it's good for national security. China's our number one adversary. I know all eyes are on Iran right now. That's the head of the snake, is what we often refer to it as. There's a sleeping dragon in China that nobody's paying attention to right now that presents a stronger threat to America and our way of life than anyone else. So I'll give you some examples. China's buying up farmland in our district. They're buying up land near military bases. And I'm not being dramatic when I say they're literally buying up American children. And I know that sounds dramatic, but they are literally buying up American
dramatic. It sounds
children.
realistic.
Yeah. So when I was serving as Senator Scott's general counsel, heading up the general counsel's office there. This issue came across my desk where you have these Chinese billionaires and officials who are paying U.S. women surrogates, often in the state of California, but all over, including in Florida, $100,000, $200,000 a pop to give birth to their children. And then those children are immediately being shipped abroad to our number one adversary. 42% of these international commercial surrogacy transactions are happening with China. And that's based on a study out of Emory that happened 10 years ago. I would imagine the number is north of that now. We are literally selling American children to our number one adversary. It's a massive human trafficking issue. And 18 years from now, because of our insane birthright citizenship laws, we have fighting age men who are free to come and go, indoctrinated by our number one adversary, fluent in Mandarin, and they're fine to come and go as they please. It is a massive national security issue. And when this issue was first brought to my attention, I called up Senator Scott and I said, this is the next big issue. China doesn't have a 10-year plan on us. They have a 100-year plan on us where they want to destroy America. And he said, draft up a bill and see how it writes. And so I did put pen to paper and from beginning to end drafted up the Safe Kids Act. That's the first ever surrogacy bill introduced in the United States Congress. And the state of Florida passed that bill. The legislature a couple months ago passed a copied and pasted version of the bill. Governor DeSantis signed it into law. So that is the law of the land, something that I wrote here in the state of Florida. But in California, in New York, you can still sell American children to our number one adversary. That is something that I want to tamp down on day one. I wrote the bill, literally, so I'm prepared to do it and would love to shepherd it across the finish line.
Okay. The first 100 days, so that bill is going to be the Save Kids Act?
Safe Kids Act, yeah.
Safe Kids Act.
And I will say that's not the only one. There's a bill called the Not One More Acre Act. I want to prevent China from buying up farmland in the United States, from buying up land near military bases. It's recorded that this is happening, and this has got to stop. I mean, they're our number one adversary. And as I said, they have a 100-year plan on us. So reining China in, sticking it to China, addressing our number one adversary is going to be day one, something that I'm going to be, single-handedly focused on.
Yeah. Let's go down to budget priorities. If you had to make one major federal spending cut and one major investment, what would they be and why?
I'd say spending cut. We're already making inroads here. But USAID, the fact that we are sending billions of dollars abroad and have been for decades is just silly and stupid and not America first, certainly. And we've got to stop sending money abroad when we have our own issues here at home.
Well, that goes into, and it's kind of a. I'm gonna switch it up.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I like what you just said.
Yeah.
And I'm having an issue with my own stuff. So let's talk about congressional war powers.
Okay.
Here recently, so I'm just going to ask the question. So do you believe that Congress should have to authorize any new military action against countries like Iran?
Is that the full question, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, there's more to it.
I'll address just that. Or
Okay, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Well, so the reason why I'm asking the question, because I want to put context behind it, because
Sure.
that's a very broad question.
Yeah.
Here recently, well, it's not even recently. I mean, if you look, it's happened with both sides, both Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and again, to give context behind this, I'm not a MAGA Republican, right? I'm not this MAGA conservative, right? I give credit where credit is due. Trump has done a lot of good things.
Sure.
He's also done a lot of stupid things, in my opinion. Some of those being like You look at April 6th, 2017, April 13th, 2018, January 3rd, 2020, June 21st, 2025, the Iran nuclear strikes. He uses military power without even talking about it with Congress. And I get it. Some things you can't when it comes to military action.
Sure.
The issue that I'm having, and I was trying to explain this to my wife last night, where it's because she was like, "Why are you so hung up on this?" And I'm like, "Because if I elect you to go to DC and represent this district, right? Okay, you're my representative on that,
Right.
and Trump goes out, picks a fight with another freaking country, and because it becomes an international incident. Let's just pretend for a second. And I know hypotheticals. A lot of people don't like to play it, but I am going to play it because he gets us into a world war. And now he comes to Congress and it's like, okay, Congress funds war. Congress, they declare war. So I need you guys to declare war on this other country because I just struck them with, missiles or whatever to take out whatever. And some of these things I agree with. I agree with the nuclear strikes and stuff like that. But one of the things that I have a problem with is the fact that Congress has no say. Now you are going to be put in a position to where are you going to send boys to go die because the president wanted to flex on another country? If we're going to say America first, dude, it's not our business to go get in everybody's shit all the time. We just need to worry about us. So I am going to ask the question one more time, and based on what I said, you can kind of hit me.
Sure.
But do you believe that Congress should have to authorize any new military action against countries like Iran?
Absolutely not. And here's why. Article 1 of the Constitution empowers Congress to declare war. But there's been Supreme Court case after Supreme Court case that affirms that Article 2, the executive, the president, is the commander in chief. And the steel seizures case, Youngstown, there's been case after case that has affirmed we need an agile executive. We need an agile president that if we're getting attacked by a country, we don't have to go get authorization from 535 people to take appropriate action to respond to that. So, in the Federalist Papers, which is the precedent for our Constitution, they talk about it being impossible to conduct war as a committee. And so, yes, to declare war, absolutely, you need congressional authorization. I am fully on board with that. I think the way that the AUMFs, with respect to terrorism, continued to authorize warfare for decades was inappropriate, and I think that's where the spirit of your question comes from. But we have to have an agile executive who can respond to force in an appropriate and rapid way, and an efficient and agile way. And so, Youngstown, that case, I would say is the number one case worth revisiting that shows, the executive is acting within his authority, and he's acting appropriately and necessarily when he's responding to threats abroad. And so he has to speak with one voice. He has to be clear about what he says, and he has to be clear about what he does. And if he has to come back and get authorization from 535 people who have mixed motives, mixed incentives, every time he wants to conduct warfare abroad, it's obviously going to lead to a very weak national security. It's not going to be peace through strength, certainly. And so just looking at the precedent of the Federalist Papers, looking at the precedent of how we've responded to certain threats abroad throughout our nation's history, and looking at how President Trump has wielded his authority abroad, I think all of it lends to the clear conclusion that no, we do not need congressional authorization every single time we want to do anything abroad with respect to war. Now, when Congress declares war as the first branch of government, that allows us to do certain things like naval blockades. It authorizes, empowers the executive to take control over certain industries. That's a lot of power. And so the declaration of war is massively important. We need Congress doing it more. They've certainly become weak and feckless. They no longer declare war, and that's a massive problem, something that I would love to address and something that we need a culture change on. But the Youngstown paradigm that we have is important. It's important that we maintain it, and it's what the Constitution spells out.
Well, I think he abuses Article 2 quite a bit. And, I mean, I get it. You know, we got people where Trump gets away with whatever he wants. Like, I'm a conservative Christian, but at the end of the day, and I support the president, but I don't agree with him on a lot of things that he does, especially this, because it's just, you look at all of these incidents that stack up, you know, there just comes a day where somebody's just gonna be like, we're tired of this, you know, the United States, you know, doing this kind of stuff. And the whole Iran thing, that crap stinks to high heaven. And the reason why is because we literally sit there and we talk about how Iran has been like this enemy for like 50 years, right? All the time. But then we're funding the Taliban that killed many of my brothers and sisters. We're giving them money now. We send it to them all the time. And this stuff that the White House comes out with all the time about Iran and all this, I don't know where we're trying to go with it, but like, you know, as somebody that, you know, did serve in the military, Iran was a thing then. Yeah. I remember having to go and fill out SGLI paperwork because I thought I was going to Iran. Yeah, that was back then, and that was like 2019, you know? And so the whole thing about it is like, I just think that he abuses those powers. I do agree with the fact that he shouldn't have to go to Congress every single time he wants to do something. But man, some of these things, there's got to be some sort of regulation there.
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
I don't think he abuses those powers. I think he's exhibiting peace through strength. I think just look at Biden and how weak our country was under Biden, both foreign and domestic. And I appreciate that we have a president who is finally pushing back. He is showing the United States might to places like China, to places like Venezuela, Russia, Iran, who have been perpetual threats and perpetual enemies. And he's shown time and again, look, for example, at Venezuela, that he's able to be surgical, that he's able to show this peace through strength mentality and not be like Biden, who was asleep at the wheel. And I think he's done a great job. And I think, you know, this is an issue that's sort of fracturing some Republicans right now. And I, know where you stand on it. I would respectfully disagree, but just look at what the alternative is and what a nightmare that
it's almost kind of like you either have to have the guy that's like 100% all in, or you got like you're never going to find a medium, I don't think. You know, like freaking Biden.
Yeah.
He embarrassed our nation.
Yeah.
Like
for 4 years. I mean, it was embarrassing.
I mean, and it was like, this dude literally got off of a helicopter and talked about how his butt was just wet. And not being able to walk around knowing like, where's the front door?
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. But okay. Well,
and I will say this too. I mean, imagine if Kamala had gotten in power. Like how disastrous things would have been under Kamala. So
she would have been laughing as we got bombed by
yeah,
the country.
absolutely. And here's the final thing that I would say. I stand behind President Trump, what he's done. I think he's done a great job. And I know we're in tension with that one. We disagree on that one. But look at Secretary Rubio. The policy chops that he has internationally, second to none. And there comes a day where I have to acknowledge, me, Austin Rogers, that I had top secret security clearance when I was in Congress, serving as the chief counsel. But I'm no longer serving in Congress. I'm no longer seeing classified briefings and this and that, and I don't have access to the information that they do. But in terms of policy chops, I mean, Rubio is second to none. And they are privy to classified information and all sorts of things that a lot of us aren't. And so there comes a day where I say the proof's in the pudding, and I show what they're doing abroad, and I show the might and the efficiency, the peace in a lot of ways that they're exhibiting abroad, and I have to applaud them, and I have to eventually trust them. So,
all right, let's move on. We're gonna go to We're gonna go to border security and immigration.
Yeah.
So the first question with that is what would you do to improve border security, and what changes would you make to legal immigration?
Yeah. We were told for 4 years under Biden that we needed a bill from Congress. We needed a law to rein in illegal immigration. Tens of millions of illegals were pouring across our border under Biden. A lot of those we now know were criminals, gang members, terrorists, thugs. And President Trump stopped that on day one. I mean, illegal immigration has screeched to a halt.
It's down by 95%.
That is staggering. And that in itself is worth pausing.
And you know
like,
what's crazy is it's like the news doesn't really do a good job at getting
why
that
aren't we
across.
talking about that every single day?
Well, there's 300, if I remember correctly, it was 380 to 385 people that were on the terrorist watch list that had come across the border in between 2020 something to 2024.
Yeah.
It was during the Biden administration. We literally had almost 400 people that were on a terrorist watch list get into this country.
Yeah.
Illegally. Like they didn't, so I think that that's great that he's on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this, something I'm proud of that I worked on as a chief counsel in the Senate Judiciary Committee was the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That was my team putting pen to paper on the provisions that funded ICE. So the $70 billion of ICE funding that they received, that was my team putting pen to paper on this bill that enacted President Trump's immigration policy. So it's something I have experience in. It's something that we need to keep moving the ball on. I mean, Biden made this country in a lot of ways unrecognizable in light of the illegal immigration that he just carte blanche allowed without any repercussions. And so we have to reverse a lot of that. We need to continue deporting criminal and gang member affiliated illegal immigrants, terrorist affiliated illegal immigrants. And that's something that I'm going to continue moving the ball down the field on. So.
Are you familiar with the Dignity Act?
Dignidad, yeah, I am.
4393?
I am.
That was my next question. Actually, I probably got ahead of myself, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. This is what that bill says. Stronger border security, mandatory nationwide E-Verify, faster legal immigration processing. Supposed to be like a pathway to legal status. If this bill comes up before you tomorrow, like, would you vote yes or no for it?
No.
Okay. Can you explain why and which part of it is what's bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bad part of it is people have tried to they've tried to cast it in all kinds of ways. It is mass amnesty in a lot of ways, and that's the part I'm not in favor of. I don't think we should be granting mass amnesty to people who have, by definition, broken
they
the
already
laws of the
came here
United States.
illegally.
The Trump v. Barber decision was just handed down, and I think it was wrong-headed, but it's the law of the land. It's what the Supreme Court affirmed. And, the reality of it is those who came here breaking the laws of the United States are not subject to the jurisdiction in terms of they warrant citizenship. And so I think the wrong-headedness in the bill is that it grants mass amnesty to those who have, by definition, broken our laws, not acknowledge the sovereignty of the United States. And so to the extent it gives them mass amnesty, I'm not in favor. Certain things like stronger border security, E-Verify efficiencies that you alluded to, those are things that make sense to me. But the mass amnesty feature of it is something that I'm never going to be on board with. My father-in-law, we talked about him earlier. He came to the United States in his teens. He came here legally. He went through the lawful process, and that's how it's supposed to be done. And yes, this country is a country founded on immigrants, but it's people who came here within their lawful right.
Yeah.
Now folks are trying to come here outside of their legal authority and outside of their lawful right, outside of the sovereignty of the United States, and it's not a sustainable system. There are some folks who try to cast it as, this compassionate thing. It's not compassionate. It's not merciful. It's not good to have a chaotic border policy. And that's what this, I think, instantiates.
Yeah. I agree with how you answered it because I was kind of curious on why it was bad, and the amnesty issue is definitely
Yeah.
a problem. If you already broke the law by coming across the border,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, we're not going to go ahead and grant you. You know, it's just like the birthright citizenship thing. It looks like they're starting to take. Have they taken that away yet, or it's
So the Trump v. Barber decision was just handed down, and they were re-examining birthright
Yeah.
citizenship. There was this case from decades ago.
we're like the only country that does it, right? Other than no, Taiwan does it.
Very few
Yeah,
countries
yeah,
do it,
yeah.
and it's unfathomable that we
Yeah.
do it. It's under the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
The 14th Amendment was meant to address slavery. That's what the 14th Amendment is about.
Yeah.
That's when it came about. And out of that, there's this case called Wong Kim Ark. And in the recent Trump v. Barber decision, they were deciding how to interpret Wong Kim Ark and whether just being born here
Yeah. Well,
gives you citizenship.
It got worse, didn't it? Because it was like something, I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe you can fact check me on this. Or, by the way, so when the editing goes, all the fact checking goes up. So
Okay.
as we talk, there'll be stuff that
Cool.
goes up there as we, but if I remember correctly, something came across my feed the other day, and it was like people from China were coming into American waters, not even touching soil.
Yeah.
They're just having kids out there like on a cruise ship, basically. So they become citizens and then go back to their country.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is that we have militaries that come here and train all the time. So Tyndall Air Force Base, we have people that come here from all over Canada. I think we have France.
Yeah.
All these different. Because even when I was in the army, I think we had like the Swiss SEALs or something like that came over. What happens is they come over. Their wife is pregnant at the time. They have the child here.
Yeah.
On U.S. soil. And it's like, well, now they're a dual citizenship and they can go back and forth. And it's like, you were here for training for like 6 months and your wife had a baby. How does now your kid has dual citizenship? You're not, neither one of you guys are. You were just here for some military training. So
Yeah.
like, there's those types of things, and I'll fact check it as it comes up. But
Wong Kim Ark, I think you fact check me on this,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Wong Kim Ark, I don't think applies to foreign diplomats. So if you're in the country as an ambassador or whatever, you don't just automatically get birthright citizenship. But if you're visiting the United States, let's say you're taking a trip to New York, you go into labor early,
Yeah.
or you come here with the intent of I want to have a United States citizen and give birth to a United States citizen.
Yep.
I'm a citizen, a resident of China, or name your country, and you come here on a tourist visa, and you give birth in the United States. Let's say you just go into labor early or induce yourself into labor early. That's a United States citizen, and that's why I talked about the Safe Kids Act earlier. We are shipping United States citizens abroad. The Trump v. Barber decision is the one that just affirmed what I'm laying out, and there's this clause, there's this provision of the 14th Amendment that says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So if you're born on U.S. soil, essentially, you are a United States citizen. And really, that provision came about because of slavery. And that provision was made to address the issue of slavery, to ensure that folks who were freed were citizens. But what it's become and what it's been interpreted as is if you come here and you have a, quote unquote anchor baby, they're a citizen.
Yeah.
If you come here illegally and you have a baby in the United States, doesn't matter if you've been bucking the law of the land, that's a United States citizen. This is a massive problem. And you're right. We're one of very few countries in the free world that would ever deteriorate or degrade our sovereignty by doing something like this. So, yeah, it's a massive issue.
Yeah. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up on the Dignity Act.
Yeah.
Next, this one's kind of big, and happy that I'm talking to somebody that's had a clearance before, because this is going to make you laugh, and I can get your opinion on it. So the government surveillance and privacy.
Yeah.
Big thing is about Flock right now. This movement throughout the United States, and then here locally, it seems like it's been like a huge thing, right? I think we have bigger problems than Flock and government surveillance utilizing AI, because the way I explained it the other day is like flock is like less than a centimeter on a ruler. It's very, very small when you start comparing AI platforms that are out there. People try to separate the two. I notice this a lot with law enforcement. They try to separate flock from AI, and it's like you can't do it. It's powered to AI surveillance. So, but I think flock is the first thing where citizens are now starting to like pay attention, which is kind of funny in itself because it's like you're worried about LPRs, right? But like there are tons of technology that you drive around all day, that you walk around all day, that's connected to you all day, that uses AI surveillance on you from our government. Mm-hmm. And you're worried about this small thing, and it's like it gets bigger than that.
Yeah. And
so the question that I have is, because I'm big on the Fourth Amendment, and if Congress voted on legislation expanding federal AI-powered surveillance capable of tracking the movements of law-abiding Americans, would you vote yes or no?
I would vote no. I mean, it's tough because the devil's going to be in the details and the particulars. But if the way you frame the question and the premise of the question is essentially if Congress is trying to enact a law that violates the Fourth Amendment, would I be on board with that? The answer is no. I do want to address one quick thing. Well, let me address two quick things. First, I'm glad you brought up that I have security clearance. You asked me several questions that were red herrings that came from my opponents, basically lies, myths that have been cooked up by my opponents at the beginning.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
Yeah.
And one has been that I've been arrested before. I've never been arrested. And
hey, no. I got that one. I totally forgot. That one slipped my mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up my top secret security clearance, right? I've never been arrested in my life, but one of my opponents, because I'm leading in the polls and, he's on a kamikaze mission and is far down in the polls, has cooked up a lie that I've been arrested before. I think twice is the lie he cooked up. And I get a call from an official about this, and they say, have you been arrested? Because your opponent is calling and saying that you've been arrested. And I go, no, I've never been arrested in my entire life. I've never been in trouble with the law. And so I'm glad you brought up the top secret security clearance. That allows me the opportunity to say, no, I have not been.
I had lies come out about me when I was running. And
it's disgusting. I mean, I have a wife and 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And the fact that somebody is that desperate to win that they're fine with lying to people about a criminal record.
This is the problem that I have with it. And I'm sorry I brought up myself. No, but the thing about it is that you really make yourself look like an idiot when you sit there and you start saying like, this person's been arrested, or this person had this issue 10, 15 years ago, or this person got a DUI, this person got a speeding ticket. And then you look at and see like, this guy is probably one of the most investigated people, because people who hold clearance, it's like less than 0.3% of the country.
Correct. Yeah.
And like you go, I've been investigated more than people that actually commit real crimes.
Correct. Yeah. So all that's to say, TS, top secret security clearance. I was a chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Got my top secret security clearance. Then was a senior counsel of oversight and investigations. Never been arrested in my life, but that has been brought up. Yeah. But that's nevertheless a lie that one of my opponents has cooked up, and something that some people are confused about. So just wanted to address that at the first, in the first instance at the outset. On the Fourth Amendment piece, there's a lot there. Mm-hmm. Our phones are collecting more data about us. Big tech is collecting more data about us than the government ever is, and than a lot of these flock systems are. The concern about these flock systems, that they violate the Fourth Amendment, according to the way the Supreme Court and lower courts have interpreted the Fourth Amendment, I think that's a myth. So a lot of my opponents in this race are saying this is a Fourth Amendment violation, this is a Fourth Amendment violation, this is a Fourth Amendment violation. It might be the case that from a policy perspective, we don't want this, or we think it's creepy, or we think it creates a wrong kind of culture. But the fact that LPRs are continuing to do what they do, the notion that you have a right to privacy on a open roadway, this has been time and again rejected by courts, and is not a Fourth Amendment violation. Something that's more concerning that people allude to is the aggregation of data, and whether you should have some sort of warrant or the like to be able to aggregate that sort of data, or to be able to access that sort of data. And that to me is a more interesting question. But a lot of my opponents want to just get a lot of steam from the community and say, this is a Fourth Amendment. It's not. And it's been held time and again that it's not. And, just in Lynn Haven recently, it's like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had a murderer who was caught using the flock system. So there is certainly a public safety upshot to it that's not being considered or talked about enough. But there's a red herring by a lot of my opponents, or a lot of my colleagues, I should say, that this is a Fourth Amendment violation, and I don't agree with that.
I feel like
I will say courts have visited this issue time and
yeah,
again.
no,
And have
you're
held
right. No,
that it's not a Fourth Amendment
They
violation.
say that it's not a Fourth Amendment violation. It's I believe that it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because it has been abused. We've seen it. It's not just a license plate reader. That's the part where people, I think, are missing it. And because it's using AI technology to pick up make, model, color, vehicle, then the license plate. And right now we're seeing across the country that people are getting hemmed up for things that they didn't even do, because technology is not perfect. Technology is going to make mistakes. AI is going to make a lot of mistakes. And when those mistakes are made, who pays for it? Because it's almost kind of like, I was just reading an article the other day, and I'll fact check it, but it was like this guy got pulled over like 6 times in a day because he kept getting flagged on Flock for somebody that he even wasn't. It's like, well, who pays for his time? That dude is going back and forth from work. He's got a family. He's got stuff going on in his life. He doesn't have time to work with law enforcement every single time they're trying to find somebody, and just so happens his vehicle matches whatever the camera picked up. At some point in time, though, we do have to look at it as a privacy issue, because you never know who might be targeting you, because law enforcement are human beings just like everybody else. They're imperfect. They're not perfect. They make mistakes.
Right.
Not only do they make mistakes, sometimes those mistakes that they make are intentional. And if someone has that type of capabilities, now I can go into the AI portion of Flock, going into Palantir, and I'm sure you know about Palantir and how it's been used by the agency for years and years and years, even the federal bureau. When you start, whenever you start getting into, I can track your bank account, I can track who you are and where you've been today, yesterday, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and I can track you through that, dude, that's a privacy issue. So, however, the part that I agree with you is yeah, if my daughter was kidnapped tomorrow, I'd want to know that we have the capabilities to find him. But do we give up privacy, our rights to privacy, for a chance that something one day will happen?
Yeah. And this is a similar narrative to what's going on.
And I'm not trying to push a specific narrative.
Sure.
But my question that comes along with that to you is, are you going to back any type of legislation that would probably, or even support or come up with something that's going to protect our privacy against AI, these AI surveillance? Because it's gonna get way more in depth than where we're at now. It.
So several issues baked into what you just brought up. I'll try to address them in turn. I'm the only person in this race who's worked on AI bills and legislation. and worked on bills that would rein in AI. Look, I don't want our AI being written on Chinese code. We are in an arms race with China when it comes to AI, but we have to be protecting our kids' online safety. We need to protect American workers. There's a lot of guardrails that are needed for AI. So, I would say at the outset, only person in the race who's actually put pen to paper on AI bills. Most of this flock stuff has been that's a matter of state law, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm running for federal Congress as a federal legislator. We don't want the federal government encroaching overly on the states from a federalist perspective.
Yep.
And I think that's right. That being said, I am fine with continuing to push the needle in the right direction when it comes to big tech, pushing back against big tech, pushing back against AI companies to the extent that they are infringing on rights or infringing on liberties. So it's a broad, open-ended question that you raise, but it reminds me, what you're talking about reminds me of the FISA Section 702 debate. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but basic gist of it is, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act allows for the government to collect data whenever U.S. citizens are corresponding with people abroad. So if you're corresponding with someone who's abroad, they don't have Fourth Amendment rights if they live abroad. And so can the government collect data on U.S. citizens whenever they're corresponding with people abroad? What President Trump and what the government tells us is that this is a massive national security benefit. This is protecting Americans. This is saving American lives on a daily basis. There are some hawks out there who say, yeah, but this is in tension with the Fourth Amendment, and we need to be reining that in. And so those are reasonable policy discussions that we can have. Ultimately, the interpretation of the Fourth Amendment comes down to the courts and the judiciary, and that's how our founders, our framers, set up the three branches of government. So those are questions the courts are going to have to look at. The courts who are looking at flock cameras are consistently saying this isn't a Fourth Amendment violation. From a policy perspective, I don't want to live in a brave new world, right? I've read 1984.
Yeah.
You have too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I don't want a surveillance state. I don't want to be like China or, but these are policy decisions. They're not constitutional questions.
Well, that's the reason why I was asking, is if you're going to be able to, at the Congress level, keep our privacy, intact.
So data privacy is an issue that I had within my portfolio as a chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Data privacy, big tech, those AI, these were all issues that were in my portfolio.
But even for the government, too.
Yeah, well, especially for the government, right?
So,
A lot of reasonable minds differ on whether big tech or big government is a bigger threat to our liberty.
I think they work together.
Yeah, I think both of them need to be kept in check, right? To ensure liberty in this country. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, data privacy is an issue that I've long worked on, written bills on, held hearings on. So just to give you an example, when I was the chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee, working for Senator Lindsey Graham, we held a big tech hearing. We brought in Mark Zuckerberg, Shu, the CEO of TikTok, the CEO of Snap, the CEO of X. We brought in all these big tech titan CEOs to call them to account for harms that are happening on their platform, be it the kids' online safety or be it data privacy.
Yeah.
And they didn't come willingly. We had to subpoena them, and we had to coordinate with U.S. Marshals to deliver them on their compounds in Hawaii and wherever they lived. And so these are things that I've been at the tip of the spear doing, and that I've been leading the charge on, and that I'm equipped to address on day one.
All right. I want to move on to the H-2B workers. Many hotels and restaurants and seasonal businesses in Northwest Florida rely on H-2B guest workers because they say they can't find enough local workers. Do you support expanding the H-2B visa program or keeping it the same or reducing it?
I think whatever we're doing right now is not working.
Well,
And
and
so
so
that's
I'm sorry.
Go
Let
ahead.
me give you that. So we found out, through research that 66,000 per year, that's the standard, as far as those requests. And Florida is the second largest state behind Texas with 21,500 openings. So when you say that it's kind of like broken, well, you didn't really say broken,
No,
but
I mean it's
okay,
broken, yeah.
what's broken about it?
So there's a debate going on about whether Americans would fill these jobs.
Yeah.
You talk to a lot of restaurateurs, a lot of hoteliers, a lot of farmers, and they'll tell you Americans aren't going to do these jobs and they need labor to do these jobs.
Do you think that it's Americans won't do these jobs or Americans don't want to do the jobs because of the pay?
That's a reasonable policy question.
I mean-
and I think reasonable minds differ on
Yeah.
that question. But what I'd say is the system that we have in place right now isn't sustainable and it's not working, clearly. But talking to a lot of folks in the restaurant, hotel, hospitality industry, talking to a lot of farmers, they want expansion of this, or they want a pathway to citizenship for a lot of the labor that they rely on. And so, the one thing I can tell you is that as a member of Congress, it's of utmost importance to me to listen to all stakeholders who have skin in the game on any given policy issue. So I know a lot of folks who think we need to be pressing in more, onshoring more work, having Americans do more of the labor here, that Americans would do that work. Those are voices that I have that I listen to and I factor into consideration, but I also have in my mind the farmers in this district. They're a massively important constituent. North Florida grows so much of this country's food and grows so much local food. And so those are voices that I have to listen to as well. And what they're telling me is we need more H-2B visas. We need expansion of this. We need to make sure that they have access to the labor they need to survive. So, and I don't want our food, I don't want to rely on food that's being grown abroad. I think that is a national security issue in and of itself. I think food security is national security. So these are all policy decisions that, the devil's going to be in the details on any particular bill, any specific measure that we're going to be talking through. But at the end of the day, what I'm going to do when I have some sort of decision point like this is I'm going to bring in all the stakeholders and I'm going to say, hey, where are you on this issue? What can we do to help you make your life better, make your businesses grow, make your businesses thrive, and make sure that we're also protecting Americans?
This has been something in the news. You kind of brought it up earlier about, and so this is the question. If Congress votes on legislation prohibiting biological males from competing in girls' and women's sports at schools receiving federal funding, would you vote yes or no?
Yes. Not even a question in my mind.
Yeah.
I think this is a very easy issue.
Me too.
It's a common sense issue.
Yeah.
What's more problematic to me is that we're having this discussion. I am a father of a daughter, right?
Yep, same.
And my daughter plays sports, and I anticipate her hopefully being a good athlete. And I think for all fair-minded people, we agree men should not be playing in women's sports. Full stop. The problem for me is more that our question shows to me that we have succumbed to a culture of decline and decadence where a lot of people don't even agree anymore on what a man is and what a woman is. That's the big issue.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And that has infected our politics for a couple decades.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's being pushed by Marxists, leftists, the radical left. And I think they're starting to hopefully moderate some. Recently, I saw this past week, there's some far leftist organization that was like, hey guys, we should probably pump the brakes on this because it's a total political loser. But there are a large swath of people on the left who still believe in this sort of radical ideology. And I would absolutely vote in favor of legislation that protects our girls in their athletics. And I think, more importantly, what I want to focus on is how do we bring our culture to a place where this is no longer a question or a topic we have to discuss,
Yeah.
because it's just such a common sense, such a clear, cut and dry issue.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I brought up the other day, it's these, so because I'd asked one of the other candidates, I'd said, hey, who do you think makes the decision on this? Do you think that it should be left up to the states, Congress, or athletic governing? Because it seems like the National Federation of State High School Associations for Athletics, the NCAA, the Florida High School Athletic Association, like all these different associations that I think we can agree are pretty liberal most of the time,
Yep.
are making these rules. And it's like, do you think that Congress, 'cause I'm for small government,
Yeah.
but sometimes the government needs to step in and be like, hey, guys, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, we're whether or not anybody wants to agree with it or not, and it's, I get it. We're a free country. You come here, you can worship whatever, you can believe whatever, right? But we are a society that's based off of Christianity.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about this moral, it's a moral issue.
Yeah.
It's not when at birth, if the doctor says, oh, okay, based on your hardware, you're a boy,
Yeah.
you're a girl.
Right.
And now, like, that's not sufficient enough. And how it's gotten into our schools with our kids is
Terrifying.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it
Like,
is.
I mean,
I have 3 kids, and the fact that that's something that I have to worry about is a problem. When I was serving as a chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee, we had a hearing where we brought in Charlie Baker, who's the NCAA president. And a lot of what we were talking about was college athletics and whatnot, but we also addressed the issue of men playing in women's sports. I don't even want to say anymore, biological, and whatever.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think the beginning of wisdom is calling a thing by its proper name. And what you have is you have men playing in women's sports. And with all due respect, he was a coward on the issue. I mean, he was. And he was hemming and hawing, and he was being a politician, and he was giving this or that answer. He talked about optionality with her. He was just throwing around a word salad. And at the end of the day, he's spineless and allowing men to play in women's sports. We got to rein that in, and it's just so common sense. And so, yeah, I would absolutely be a champion on anything that protects our women and girls.
APAC and foreign influencers. Will you accept campaign contributions or outside support from APAC or any foreign policy advocacy organization?
So, yeah, I mean, I would say that this subject hasn't come up for me, right? They haven't offered me money.
Yeah. Yep.
I will say that just from the outset would reject the premise of the question that any sort of money is going to influence my decision making. So that's the first thing I'd like to lay out. I don't need this job. I don't need to run for this job. I am running for this seat because I love our country. I love North Florida. I love the Panhandle. This is home. And so, I was making metric ton more in private practice, a metric ton more. And so I don't need this job. I'm doing it because I want to serve and because I love this country. So the notion that I would need foreign money or need money to influence me in any way, shape, or form, would sort of reject at the outset. It is illegal, of course, to receive money from abroad, just from a FEC standpoint. So receiving money from abroad is not something I'm going to do. That's the other thing. We talked earlier about this lie that one of my opponents had cooked up, that I'm receiving money from Lebanon. That's illegal. That's just full stop illegal, right? And so, no, I'm not receiving money from Lebanon. But I also am not having Israel directly ship in money to me either. I think there are
I think you also hit on it too, and I'm going to reiterate this again. When you have a clearance
Yes.
of any kind,
Yeah.
like They literally shove a microscope up your ass.
Yeah, and they inspect every
So-
last
Yeah.
family relationship you have.
Yes.
Every
Yep.
last friendship you have. They interview your neighbors. They interview your friends.
They go back to school teachers.
They look at your addresses from
Yeah.
decades. I mean, it is
Yeah.
a full blown inspection.
Yeah.
And no, yeah, I'm not receiving money from Lebanon. I'm not receiving money from Israel. Like
Yeah.
it is literally illegal to do that, and I'm not breaking the law here.
Yeah. So, that's.
But I
kinda-
will tell you this: I do want to, in the interest of full disclosure, just say that I am pro-Israel. So I think that is something that is fracturing the Republican Party. It's sad to me that it is fracturing the Republican Party. There's a contingency on the right who are sort of the Tucker Carlson ilk, James Fishback ilk, who, for whatever reason, are anti-Israel or who are being highly critical of them. I do think they're an important ally, and I do, in the interests of truth in lending and full disclosure, I am pro-Israel, and I'm not ashamed to be pro-Israel.
So, I've seen this a lot. About like, it's almost like a complete hatred towards them a little bit, which we've seen it for years. We've seen it for thousands of years, right?
Well,
I mean,
from
it's
the
biblical.
far left is where we've recently,
Yeah.
where we most commonly see it. I think the Democratic Party is clearly off the rails when it comes to the Israel issue. I mean, they have a Hamas caucus that's basically leading the charge on the Democrat side, but the fact that it's now starting to splinter off some Republicans is disturbing to me, and it's something that I'd like to see more unity on.
So I explained it like this, and you can, it's nothing but a conversation. But like, the other day I explained it where it was like, okay, the way that I look at Israel and America are the same as I look at like friendship. So like me and you can become friends if you call me and you say, "Hey Ron, I'm down right now, like on my luck, whatever." I doubt that would happen because you're a pretty successful lawyer, so you've made money. It would be like me calling you, and I'd be like, "Hey man, I'm down on my luck. Like, can I get a couple $1,000 to get me through?" And if you have it, it's kind of like, "Sure, man. Like, I'll help you out. We're friends." But sometimes you don't have it. I don't think the United States, America first, right? Like, what's going? I'm sick and tired of us going and always helping out other countries just because it's like, well, we're allies. And it's like, well, if we called Israel tomorrow and we started asking for money, are they going to give it to us? Like, I mean, and I think it has to be a two-way street, but how I look at Israel is like, when you say that these people are an ally, it's simplified, they're friends. I'm not going to bomb you tomorrow. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to do anything that's going to harm your nation. But I also believe that you need to fight your own freaking battles. I can't be jumping in every single time to save your ass because, well, this country's bombing me. This is what's going on. We need aid, and it's like, man, dude, when are you guys going to get your act together? I mean, it's been thousands of years. Now, I know that, does that sound like the evangelical Christian, answer? No, but it's not just with Israel. I look at that way with every country.
Yeah. Can I push back slightly?
Did you? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
So one thing I do want to just nuance that with is by saying Israel's a country that on all sides of them are surrounded by radical Islamist terrorists. And, you've got Hamas, you've got Hezbollah, et cetera. And those countries they're not saying it in quiet, they're saying out loud, push Israel into the sea. And they view Israel as an existential threat. They want death to Israel, death to America. And so it's not just they're throwing their weight around and trying to, I mean, October 7th was not Israel asking or looking for a fight, right? I mean, October 7th was a terrorist attack that happened on a country gratuitously with no need, and it was a grotesque attack. So, Israel is being attacked from every angle, and I don't think they're just going out of their way trying to be a bully or anything like that. I think they're surrounded by people who are trying to murder them, literally.
that are murdering them.
Yeah.
I mean, it does happen.
I studied abroad in Israel when I was in college.
What part of Israel were you in?
So we stayed in the southwest corner of Jerusalem, and at a university there called JUC, and was at Wheaton College at the time. It was a study abroad in the Holy Lands, essentially, and 5 weeks of it were in Israel. The other part of the trip was, or the study abroad was, Greece, Turkey, Italy, and it is a normal way of life in Israel to feel threatened. But that's the reality of their day in, day out. Mm-hmm. And so I hear what you're saying. I do just want to gently push back and say that's another relevant consideration too. So,
okay, cool. Well, that wraps it up on the APAC foreign influencers. So you're not going to be influenced by any type of foreign anything.
No. And I do want to say, obviously I said, disagree with the premise of the question, but to our point earlier, there is a lie that has been cooked up, outright lie, that I've received money from Lebanon or something like that. Completely false. And my father-in-law immigrated from Lebanon when he was in his teens, and he has been an American citizen, most patriotic, Christian, amazing human being I've ever met. And he has contributed to our campaign, and I'm very proud to receive money from him.
He
He is the epitome of the American dream.
He's probably getting away from Lebanon when it was going through all its crap.
Yeah, he came here from Lebanon because of the Civil War.
Yeah.
So it's a lie cooked up by some of my colleagues, but I think folks will see through it.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. And this is like I said, these questions were sent to me. So I know where you're at with Israel. But this question is, would you support legislation expanding U.S.-Israel defense integration? That's something that came up here recently, headline.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is the United States needs to be independent when it comes to our defense. There's certainly information sharing, and there are agreements to that effect. There's certainly sharing of, we sell weapons. There are all sorts of things like that. But I would never support some sort of formal integration of our military systems, if that makes sense. No,
that makes sense, and it makes me happy because some people can take the Israel thing just a little bit too far, and I believe that is taking it too far.
I understand trying to be. We talked about America first earlier, and how Israel is unfortunately fracturing some of the Republican Party. I mentioned I'm pro-Israel, but it's one thing to be thoughtful about the money that's being spent abroad and this and that, but I think it's another thing, the direction that some folks on the very far right and then basically all the Democrat Party are taking it. So,
okay, federal spending question, and then we're almost done. So, the United States over $36 trillion in debt. The question is if I handed you the federal budget and a red pen tomorrow, what would you start cutting immediately?
I think day one, I would start cutting a lot. The size and scope of the federal government has gotten out of hand, and we need to scale it back as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Certainly, some of the money that we send abroad, USAID, I'm glad to see cuts there. I think there are more to do there. Certainly there. I think certainly when it comes to certain reforms, when it comes to entitlements, that's something that I'd like to look at. But most importantly is the size and scope of the administrative state. So you have millions of dollars being given to unelected bureaucrats to run things in the Department of Education. That's just one example of an agency that needs to be liquidated, either scaled back so drastically, it's insignificant, or completely liquidated altogether. I would be in favor of getting rid of it altogether.
I'm happy you said that because I got a question about that since how you brought up the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Well, also USAID.
Yeah.
How do I word this without? So you want to cut their budget? You don't.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Sweet. I I misheard
Yeah,
you.
it might
a
have
second
been
ago.
unclear.
I
I
was
wanna
like,
cut their budget.
a second
Yeah.
ago, I was like, you want to cut that budget, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't.
I want to cut the
Okay.
budgets for countless
Yeah.
agencies. So, EPA, IRS, these are a lot of agencies that I really want to severely cut, if not get rid of altogether.
Yeah, it was-
ATF, I mean,
It was like, because I was looking at it, it's like our defense is roughly 900 billion. However, I kind of agree with that. I'd kind of like to see it go up. But the Homeland Security is at 100 billion. Education is 80 billion. Justice is 40 billion. Foreign aid, God, like it just keeps racking up, and it's
Yeah.
like, what would you cut? And
Yeah.
so now you brought up so I'll move on from that one because
Sure.
I know you're going to be on top of the budget type thing.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
final closing remark there before you move on to the next question. Working for Senator Scott, we would meet together every day, talk about various issues percolating throughout Congress. And something that came up every day was the budget and the fact that we are dancing on the Titanic when it comes to our budget. And so we got to cut things, we got to cut spending. And that is something I want to be leading the charge on.
All right, so getting on the education, because you had brought that up. So would you vote to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education?
I would, yes. Yeah. So I think that education is best done on a local level. I think parents are best situated to direct the upbringing, the education of their children. So whatever we can do to get the federal government out of education, I'd be in favor of.
There's a couple of programs that go along with the Department of Education, which is you have the IDEA, that's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, about $15 to $16 billion annually. And then you also have the Title I, $18.4 billion. Do you believe that instead of that going to federal programs, that it should go back to the states? Should it stay with the federal? How do you think that money should be left up? Because we're talking about students with disabilities,
Yeah.
handicap, and all that.
Right.
Should that money just go straight into the states?
Yeah, so nature abhors a vacuum, and I'm not suggesting that some of these valuable services shouldn't continue.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the Department of Education shouldn't be the one who is single-handedly empowered to address.
I understand that.
So I think in a lot of ways, giving this power to the states, turning that money, that power to the states, I think is going to do a whole lot of good.
Yeah, I just, it was not a trick question. It was
No,
more
yeah.
like, hey, where does that money go now?
For sure.
Because, that's a lot of freaking money.
Oh, yeah.
And to be honest with you, and you could probably, I'm a simple dude, so I'm not going to understand huge budgets, but some of that sounds unrealistic to have in those things.
Yeah.
I don't believe that budget should be that high.
Yeah.
It seems pretty high.
Yeah. It's really high, but look, I know sign language, for example,
Yeah.
and I learned sign language because my brother was best friends with some deaf people, and I learned sign language just spending some time with them, wanting to be able to communicate with them. The fact that they had valuable services that gave them the ability to learn regardless of their disability, it's not like I'm suggesting all that should go away at all. I think that has to continue, but who leads the charge on what is what I'm suggesting we should be more thoughtful about.
All right, cool. I got a couple more questions. We're gonna go into. I have it listed here as military shutdowns, but it's government shutdowns. So I served on active duty.
Thank you for your service.
I remember that. There'd be times where, especially when, you have the government shutdowns, sometimes might not get paid. And you still got to go to work because you're under contract.
I've been through a few of those.
Yeah. And so, the question is, if Congress can't perform its most basic constitutional duty of funding the government, why should service members and their families bear the consequences before Congress does?
I completely agree. The most ironic part of watching these government shutdowns, because I went through a couple of them when I was serving in Congress. I, served in the judiciary as well, clerking for Chief Judge Mary Day. And with these government shutdowns, the most ironic part was always that, Chuck Schumer and a lot of politicians would come and go. They're being protected by a detail who aren't getting paid while Chuck Schumer is drawing in a salary. And something's got to change there. There are a lot of bills that address this issue. The No Shutdowns Act, Ron Johnson has a bill that addresses the issue of shutdowns. It would essentially keep spending at baseline at the year that it was authorized the year before. If Congress isn't able to do their core functional duty of passing a budget. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the government's held hostage, that servicemen aren't paid, that the people who are protecting the lawmakers aren't being paid while the members are coming in, living a wine and cheese lifestyle. I mean, that's disgusting. Something's got to change there.
Yeah, because so I want to get you on the record on these questions. You could just say yes or no. You can give a long answer if you want.
Sure.
So would you support requiring Congress to remain in Washington and continue voting until the government is funded?
Sure. Yeah.
Would you voluntarily escrow your congressional
Do you mind if I have a follow-up comment on that question? I think more shutdowns happen because leadership in Congress isn't as willing to exact pain on its members. So, for example, some shutdowns happened in the recent past, and we didn't stay through weekends, we didn't stay through holidays, things like that. I think if you did that sort of stuff more, members of Congress would get their act together and they would come to the table and have a reasonable approach. So even with the Save America Act, implementing voter ID, very common sense reforms that we need within the voting space and election integrity space, they haven't tried to inflict some pain. And I'd like to see more of that done. I'd like to see that done in the government shutdown space. And I think that would actually move the needle and, make the government more effective. So anyway, moving on.
Would you voluntarily escrow your congressional salary during a shutdown until every affected federal employee and service member has been paid?
Yes.
And would you support legislation guaranteeing that military pay and death gratuities can never again be delayed because of the government?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was another thing. I know somebody personally that went through a period when the death gratuity benefits for families of fallen service members were delayed.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those where it's hey man, they did their job. It's you do yours.
Yeah. Just because Congress can't do its job doesn't mean that people should suffer for that, especially not when they've given so much for this country. So whatever we can do to stick it to Congress and put the pain on Congress instead of the American people, instead of those who are fighting on behalf of our country, is something I'm always going to vote in favor of.
Okay, cool.
You have my word.
Awesome. So Social Security is next. Now, I typed this out. So, my personal view is that I look at Social Security kind of as a Ponzi scheme a little bit because today's workers are paying today's retirees. And I worry that younger Americans are being asked to fund a system they may never fully benefit from. I also understand that why many older Americans feel differently. They paid into the system for decades and expect what they were promised. So the Retirement Trust Fund is projected to face major funding shortfall around 2032 if Congress doesn't act. Congress has known this for years, and you're running for the job that's responsible for addressing it. So when Social Security reform comes before the House, what is the first specific reform you are willing to vote for?
Absolutely. I think you put it well when you said that we are paying into a system that we might not benefit from. My wife and I have paid into a system for a long time that we know we probably will never see the benefits of. That's the reality of it. From a 10,000-foot view, what's needed is to eliminate a pay-as-you-go system. Because right now, it is exactly what you identified. Workers today are paying the benefits of the beneficiaries. We have to protect the money that beneficiaries are receiving, that they have been paying into. We have to protect those who are already getting Social Security, but we have to eliminate this pay-as-you-go system. We have to reform this pay-as-you-go system so that there's actually some solvency to it. Because as you identified, it's going to run out of money here in a decade. So whatever we can do to implement reasonable reforms that would make it less of a pay-as-you-go system, I think is going to be something that is a value add to the system. And I will say this, I've been through lunch and learns and talks and conversations and met with members of Congress about how we're going to reform Social Security.
Yeah.
And so those are things that, I've been in the dialogue about.
You have some ideas on it? Like, is it
some folks want to raise the age, they're
raise
all
the payroll cap?
raise the payroll cap. There are all sorts of reforms that folks have proposed, the extent to which money can be invested. There's a lot of reasonable questions out there, but from a 10,000 foot view and first principles sort of view, we have to get off a current workers are paying for the benefits of beneficiaries.
Yeah.
And it's a pay-as-you-go system. We have to move off that system to restore some sort of solvency to it.
Last question.
Sure.
Congressional stock trading.
Yeah.
This question, whenever I have asked it, has been one of those like, well. So I'm anxious to hear, should members of Congress be prohibited from trading individual stocks while in office?
Yes. I think members of Congress should be prohibited from trading individual stocks while in office.
Do you think that should pass on to their family members as well? Like immediate family members? I'm talking about like wife, kids.
Yeah, I think that's probably a reasonable proposal or something that should be looked at. I think, the bottom line is that you have Nancy Pelosi. You have a lot of folks like that who are getting rich off of their time in, getting rich, getting wealthy off their time in Congress. And that's unacceptable. I worked for Senator Graham for a couple of years whenever I was the chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Senator Graham recently passed away. Super tragic, super unexpected.
Only worth like 1.2.
Worth $1 million. I mean, the man was not getting rich in Congress. He wasn't trading for him. He loved this country. He was a patriot. He wanted to serve this country.
Colonel, right?
Yeah.
Retired colonel.
Yes, exactly. And there are some folks who didn't love his policies or thought he was too war hawkish, but you can't deny that the man loved this country.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting rich off his time in Congress. I don't think members of Congress should be getting rich. I think it should be a public service. And so I would support, preventing members of Congress from trading while they're there. Now, there have been some bills out there, and this is an issue that I also tackled as chief counsel in Congress. So, one thing I would like to continue beating the drum on and reiterating to you and the audience is I have worked on this issue. I have put pen to paper on a bill on this issue. But there's some bills out there that would require members of Congress to divest of everything that they own to be a member of Congress. That is something that I don't think I'd be in favor of, because you have some folks who, let's say, own a family farm, and the notion would be you have to divest this family farm that's been in your family for 6 generations. And I don't think that's a reasonable proposal either, because you're going to disincentivize good men and women from coming into Congress. So I don't agree with a full-blown divest and all you can have is cash sort of approach. I don't think that's a reasonable solution, but I certainly think banning stock trading is something we should look at.
Well, that is all the questions that I have. If there's anything that we didn't hit on that you'd like to talk about?
No, I mean, big thing, rogersforflorida.com. Please check us out. Please visit the website. Please consider donating. Please consider volunteering. That's something that I would like to, just put a shameless plug in for the audience. So that's it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Good to meet you, brother.